Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing BDK Rouge Smoking. Yes, this is a sample. Yes, I don't own a bottle of this, but I do like it. But I do have things to say about this fragrance. So let's get into the video. First, this sample was given to me by my mom, but I have tried and worn this fragrance for a bit. I do really like this fragrance, but I have some critique about it. And I have to be honest with you guys, I think this fragrance deserves the hype that it gets, the love that this fragrance gets. I understand it and I appreciate it, but I want more and I demand more. And from this fragrance, I wish there was more. So the first part of this, I'm going to review the fragrance, and then at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a little bit of my critique. Now, I don't own this fragrance yet. I don't own any fragrances from BDK. I haven't had a huge sense of urgency to add any of the fragrances to my collection, but they are on my, at some point I will buy pretty much all the fragrances because I enjoy them. I do like the house. I just haven't had a huge, again, urgency to add them to my collection. So I do like the brand. I don't own any of the brand. It's nothing against the brand. I actually really like them. I just have a lot of samples and a few decants of them, and I just wear those before I buy a bottle, but they are a nice brand. I enjoy them. So this fragrance, I'm gonna have to read for you the notes. And this is a luxury niche house. I don't find their fragrances to be crazy expensive. I know on, I think, Lucky Scent, if you buy 100 ml of this, it's $190. Mortgaging your house or, you know, doing crazy things like selling all the furniture that you own and all your cutlery so that you can buy a bottle of perfume. It is more affordable, expensive, if that makes sense. But still pricey. So the notes in this, according to Lucky Scent, because that's the website that I pulled up because that was the first one when I looked up for it. When I looked it up, there we go. We have Bergamot, we have Cherry Accord, Pink Berries, Black Vanilla, Heliotrope, Ambroxan, Cashmeran, Tonka Bean, Labdanum, and White Musk. Now this fragrance is a cherry fragrance. In my honest opinion, it is not a dupe or a clone for Lost Cherry at all. They have a very beautiful cherry note in them that's very dominant. If you like cherry, I think you could easily have both in your collection and it wouldn't be redundant. But in my opinion, they don't smell the same. I find Lost Cherry from Tom Ford to be more boozy, to be a little bit more sexy, to be a little bit more provocative, which is saying something, although not saying something considering Tom Ford. But with BDK Rouge Smoking, I have an issue with this fragrance in the opening and the dry down. It goes away, but this does remind me, and I think a lot of people say this too, that it smells like Dr. Pepper Cherry, Cherry Cola. You've got that kind of vanilla note in there with this sweet syrup that's kind of reminiscent of, like, if you like to put cherry syrup or cherries in your root beer floats or things like that. It definitely has that kind of gourmand cherry cola vibe to it, which I think is fantastic in fragrances. And I find to be very sexy and very attractive on the skin. And I also don't think that those types of fragrances smell cheap or gimmicky when they're done correctly. And it's done correctly in this fragrance. I like the vanilla in here. I think it works really well with the cherry. The cherry is nice. It kind of smells like a really deep, dark cherry liquor without being boozy. And there's something about the way that the Tonka is that adds a little bit of a powdery muskiness just in the background, just a little bit, that I think just smells really nice and elevates it just a tish. The issue I have with this fragrance has more to do with its development and smelling expensive, but overall this fragrance smells really sexy and nice. I also like when fruity fragrances, especially ones that smell like fruit, like berries, like things that are tutti frutti almost, have a nice something to them that anchors them and makes them smell more shared. And the vanilla in here does that beautifully. I think when something smells a little bit more syrupy, a little bit more cola, those kind of nuances with the heliotrope, with the vanilla, with the berries, with the labdanum and the cashmeran, all of those like nuances don't really come forth and take over this kind of cherry, syrupy, sexy red vibe that this fragrance has. But what it does is it tames the cherry and makes it less of something tutti fruity and more of something sexy and fruity, and something that you could see men or women wearing and being something very attractive. And I like that a lot of the notes in here are more balancing the composition and less fighting and taking over the fragrance and kind of losing what this fragrance is really supposed to be, which is a very sexy, powerful, fruity, like in your face scent. And I think it does it very well. This will kind of smell a little bit like cherry cola on your skin, but like I said, I don't find those compositions to smell cheap. Actually, when they're done correctly, they can smell very high end. There's something really sexy and luxurious about smelling like cherry cola. And that sounds like, what is she talking about? But some of my favorite fragrances that are more higher end niche do have that kind of beautiful vibe. And some people might be like, what the heck does cherry cola smell like, or root beer smell like? But for me, it's almost borderline on patissier, balancing of flavors. And also when you have aromatics, balancing of spices. There's something to be said for these kind of cola-y flavors, because it's not cola, it's a lot of different spices and sugars and fruits and flavors coming together, and it takes a lot to balance that in a way that smells very sexy and works really good on the skin. And this is done in such a successful way that I really enjoy, but it's really focusing on this really gorgeous, rich and juicy cherry note. And I like the vanilla in here. Now, I would have loved an almond note in here, but we're gonna get into that. Quickly round out this review. It's a really beautiful, sexy, red smelling. It kind of smells a little cinnamony and spicy the first kind of like 10 to 15 minutes that it's on your skin, and then it kind of becomes a little bit more, I'd say, musky and more nuanced in the background. It's when the berries kind of stop being so forefront and they kind of add more to the base of the foundation of this fragrance that works to elevate this really beautiful vanilla with fruits and heliotrope, and specifically this gorgeous cherry accord. The longevity of this fragrance is pretty good. I get about 8 to 10 hours on my skin, but the first 2 hours is where we're gonna have conversation about that. The projection of this is moderate. This is something that people will be able to smell, social distancing, but they're gonna get more of something that just smells cherry. The closer that they get, they're gonna get more of the vanilla and the other notes in here, which are really, really nice. At the end of the day, I think this fragrance has definitely earned its cult-like love status. I think it's very sexy, it's very attractive, and if you love cherry, it's a great fragrance to have in your collection. But now that I've kind of talked about it, and we're gonna talk about what I wish it was. The first issue I have with this fragrance has to do with its initial dry down and development. This isn't a linear scent the first 2 hours. It takes time for all the notes to come together and smell how it's supposed to be. Once it gets to that point, it's incredible. And I think that it's okay for, I don't know why I keep holding this. You're probably tired of hearing that like jiggle around. Once it gets to that point, it's incredible. And a development, dry down, fragrances taking their time, base notes coming up, top notes drying down, everything kind of warming up to your body chemistry. I get it, things take time, and that's okay. And the price point for this fragrance, I don't find it to be overtly expensive to be completely offended by how long this fragrance takes to dry down. When you first spray it on your skin, it still gets that kind of really beautiful deep cherry. It's still sexy, it's still powerful, and if that's ultimately what you're looking for, you're gonna like this start to finish. However, you guys say that I like too many things too easily. Oh, have I got stories for you. This one, I liked this one initially, but I was so deeply upset by the first few times I smelled this fragrance and I have reasons. So I have a deep, deep hatred for things that smell or taste like cherry cough syrup. And cherry cola-like compositions, when not properly balanced, can lean medicinal, can lean cherry cough syrup. No, I don't want that on my skin. I have road trip memories, PTSD, literally, from being nauseous and throwing up in cars and my parents force feeding me cherry drops from Cracker Barrel. If I was hungry, I'd be given cherry drops. If I was thirsty, cherry drops. If I was bored, cherry drops. If I was nauseous, cherry drops. Everything I could possibly need in the car for days, because we would drive for days, was given cherry drops. And I was very nauseous in cars. I do not handle car rides very well. So I have a deep-seated, like almost ingrained in my DNA, hatred of things that are a deep cherry that almost smell or taste a little bit like cherry cough syrup. I love cherry flavored things and I love cherry scented things. This fragrance, the first 10 to 30 minutes, I'd say, smells like cherry cough syrup. And I was just like, oh no. I could understand other people really liking that, because it wasn't straight up medicinal like sometimes eucalyptus can smell like Vicks VapoRub. But for me, it was the notes were too leaning like those types of flavors that you would find in cough syrups that then have a really cheap kind of cherry flavor just kind of thrown in to make it not taste like cough syrup. And I was like, there's something about this that just I don't like. But I know things need to take time to develop. So I gave it 20-30 minutes, and to my surprise and delight, it went away. And then it became cherry red hots. And I was like, what is this? It smelled like straight cinnamon, like cherry, like red hot cinnamon, not like a cinnamon in a fragrance that was adding a spice and a heat and something about it that was giving it warmth. It literally like somebody took red hots and melted them and then put them in the cough syrup and then rubbed it on my skin. But I will tell you, I really liked that. I did. I thought it smelled really sexy, and I kind of really want that fragrance now. But I was like, wait a minute. This was the first few times I wore the fragrance. This was like a year ago, and I was just like, what? Because I went to my notes, because I'll tell you when I got this sample, and I was just like, red hots, what? And that took an hour and a half to develop. And then it kind of came into what it is, which I find to be what I reviewed to you, which is something gorgeous, which is this beautiful kind of nuanced cherry, kind of cola-esque kind of scent, specifically with the vanilla. The Heliotrope actually helps with it too. I do find that I was expecting more of the Ambroxan to be a little bit more front and center. I think that would have added a little bit more of a punch to it, but I do like that it's not overtly an Ambroxan bomb, because I think that also might have cheapened the composition. I wish there was a little tiny bit more Ambroxan, but I do think that this fragrance developed very weirdly on my skin. And at first, the first I'd say 4 or 5 times I wore it, I just was like, what is this? What is this? And I don't know why. I don't know why. But I will say that once it developed on my skin, I enjoyed it. I wish this fragrance was more though. So what I mean by that is there's some compositions I smell and it seems like, oh, obviously this is what you would do. I'm not thinking about the creative prompt with this fragrance. I'm thinking about sitting here and smelling a fragrance and thinking, is this a final draft? Is this the best you can do? And obviously, most definitely, a lot of people love this fragrance. This is a cult fragrance from the line. In fact, I think a lot of people really started paying attention to this brand because of this fragrance. So what I'm saying now might sound like completely like, well, you don't know anything, because I really don't. But in my mind, I'm smelling this and I do like it and I do understand its hype, but it doesn't feel like a final draft. I feel like it needs something else first and foremost to bridge this development, to bridge the opening and the dry down to the kind of the entire experience at the end. And if you know me, you probably know what I'm gonna say, which is bitter almond. I think bitter almond and probably like a mandarin would have really helped. I think the juiciness from a mandarin, not a green mandarin, but just a regular mandarin, would have kind of helped kind of take this and just kind of softened a little bit of this, what I feel was just too much of a cherry drop type of smell. And also I think would have tamed a bit of the spice that smelled a little bit too red hot. And I think the bitter almond would have elevated the cherry into something that would have been more high-end pastry, sexy patissier, rather than a cherry cola. And I think that would have super elevated this composition in a way that would have taken it like higher end, better than what you get. And I mean, I don't dislike this fragrance. I think it's fantastic. I've worn through probably like at least how big is this? This is 2 ml. I've probably worn at least 6 of these samples. So I've worn a decent amount of this fragrance, probably at least a travel size amount. I do enjoy this fragrance a lot, but there are some compositions that I smell and I think to myself, this could have been not like a cult hit that'll probably be forgotten in a few years, because there'll be another cherry fragrance that'll come around. There'll be another luxury niche that's around this price point that all the other reviewers are going to talk about, and this one will be kind of thrown off to the side. But something that would cement this as a fragrance that would be remembered. And that's what I'm looking for. And I know that these brands can do it, because this is done really well, but I feel like it needed a little bit more. So this is definitely a scent. I completely agree with the hype. I think that these types of fragrances smell good. I think that these types of fragrances are mass appealing in a way where they don't feel like the types of fragrances you smell every day, but they smell like the types of fragrances everybody wants to have in their collection and smell like wish list fragrances. Like they smell and they're like, yes, well, where has this been my whole life? I understand that. I like it. I love it, actually. I think it's a fantastic cherry fragrance, and I think it's wildly successful and very well done. But smelling this and seeing how good they did, I just wish there was more. I wish there was more to help with the transition from opening to dry down to basically how the fragrance smells for the lifespan of the scent. And I wish there was something more that took this as more than just a cherry cola fragrance, because this does have this very kind of salacious, creative prompt to this scent. And I feel like it's a little bit disjointed from the actual scent. But the scent is great. If I were to rate the fragrance, I'd probably give it an A. It's really nice, but it could have easily been an A+. It's like an 8 out of 10. It could have been a 10 out of 10 with just a little bit more. And that's kind of like what I'm saying. And that's just what disappointing me is, because I'm looking at something and I know it could have been a home run. I think that's the correct term. I'm not good at sports. Yes, it is. I'm not that bad. But it's almost there. But it definitely deserves, in my opinion, the attention that it gets. But it should have had just another few rounds to just kind of really make it airtight and special. But that's my thoughts, and I know I've been talking way too long about this, so we're gonna stop the video here. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you agree with my review? Do you disagree with my review? Let me know. Because when my mom gave me this sample today, and I sprayed it on my skin, I was immediately brought back to my thoughts of this smells like cough syrup and then this smells like Red Hots. And I was like, didn't I think that before? And then I went back to my notes and I was like, yes. So that wasn't just something that I thought in the past. That was something that even like a year later or months later, it might have been less than a year, I don't remember. There's so much that's been going on the past like year and a half. But this is something that just has always, I guess, done that on my skin. And I'd like to know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.